All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Councilmember J.C. Sebastian. I'm Mayor Pro Tem in the absence of the Mayor. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Thank you guys for joining us. We are going to be doing our final budget meeting hopefully tonight. Thank you for those who are also joining us virtually. And with that, Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of City Council. This is a roll call for the September 18th City Council Special Call meeting for the FY2025 budget. The Honorable Catherine F. Ryle, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
Present. Present.
The Honorable J.C. Sebastian, District 4.
Present.
The Honorable Keosha B. Bell, District 5. She should be arriving shortly. The Honorable Natasha Williams Brown, District 6.
Present.
And the Honorable Linda B. Pritchett, District 7.
Here.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can you call the next item, please?
First item on tonight's agenda is the FY2025 budget presentation. This will be presented by our City Manager, Sharon D. Subadan.
Mic check. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, staff, and the general public who might be tuning in.
Mr. Hammond, can you bring the presentation up, please?
Thank you. This is the fiscal 25 budget, final presentation of the budget for your consideration, City Manager's proposed budget for your consideration. Next slide, please. It incorporates our mission and vision. Next slide. And of course, this is one of the most important policy decisions that you will make every year. Next slide. Our theme this year continues to be impact-driven in 5 critical areas. Next slide. There were some changes made to the budget from the original that was presented in July. These were part of the last public hearing. Our total budget this year is $257,488,718. Next slide, please. Most importantly, the budget does not require any change in the millage rate. We're funding all continuing operations, annualization of expenses. We've incorporated a 4% cost of living increase for all staff and funded long-term disability and a new insurance that's required for public safety for PTSD. The 5 new initiative areas in our budget are around public safety, future city facilities, planning for the future, workforce development, and quality of life and infrastructure enhancements. Next slide. And broken down are our big areas: $151 million in general operating, general fund, $71.9 million in other funds, and $34 million in one-time capital expenses. Next slide, please. And this is a breakdown. This will be the first year of a 5-year capital improvement program. We are funding that along with one-time expenses in an amount of $34.1 million. Next slide. And this is a comparison year over year. There was a significant change in the FY24 budget at the mid-year where we funded some positions and reallocated some funds. We did not move any funding in the mid-year from reserves. We just moved money around that was projected to be unspent or underspent in our current year budget. Next slide, please. And here are our funding sources. Where does the funding come from? Our enterprise funds in particular are going to be around solid waste and Wolf Creek. Trust and custodial funds are like the tree fund. Our capital funds, as outlined, and special revenue would be in the areas of T-SPLOST. General fund is generally made up of our property taxes, ad valorem, and LOST, and other funding sources. Next slide, please. So of our general fund, this provides a breakdown and the year-over-year change. Of course, these are projected revenues. The smallest change is going to be in property taxes because we rolled the millage rate back last year and we did not increase it this year. It's showing the smallest amount of change. And you can see there are other areas where we are seeing some increases in revenue to be able to fund our expenditures. And we are anticipating a budgeted use of reserves in all funds. Next slide, please. And this is the analysis of revenue year over year. Next slide. And the comparative revenue analysis of the other funds. Next slide, please. And once again, just a different display demonstrating that property tax accounts for 37%, sales and use tax 30%. In this year's budget, we're using 22% of budgeted reserves for one-time expenditures. Next slide. And this incorporates our special revenue and capital funds to include T-SPLOST, traffic cameras, the remainder of American Rescue Act funds, our 911 fund, tree fund, and so on. Next slide. And this reflects our, next slide, our expenditures. Can you move that up a bit, Corey? I'm not sure why it's displaying that way. Thank you. And these are our general fund expenditures. Of course, general fund is going to be used to fund just about all of our major operating departments. And again, this year we're allocating funding for capital. One question that has been asked is how does this impact our fund balance? At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the reduction in fund balance. But that still is well within our financial policies that you passed earlier this year, allowing us to ensure that there's sufficient operating funding in our rainy day fund, and operating reserves does not deplete our ability to meet any emergency, and it's consistent with our financial policies. Next slide. And this simply shows our expenditures in a different format, so you can see where the largest percentage of our allocations are going. 33.9% for general government, 25% for public safety, 16.9% for public works. Next slide. This demonstrates our expenditures by function versus department. 34% for general government, and so on, going all the way down the line, including our costs associated with new initiatives, our base budget and our new initiatives. Next slide, please. And this is the 5-year capital improvement plan. The first 2 years are pretty detailed. We have first 3 years are pretty detailed. Years 4 and 5. We anticipate that the council will have other priorities, which will come from you in the form of policy. But in the next 3 years, this is the layout. As I explained, year 1 is fully funded. Years 2 and 3, it's unlikely that we will be able to fund those from reserves. We will have to prepare ourselves for some debt service, because in those years we will be seeing the major build out of police headquarters, fire training, and city hall. Next slide, please. And this is a breakdown of our capital plan by department and function. And we have set some funding aside for land acquisition. And there's CIP, every department has a CIP allocation. a big part of what we will be doing in this next fiscal year is deferred maintenance in our parks and city facilities. Next slide. Because this is of interest to the council, we made some small adjustments, but we've outlined your signature and secondary events that are funded as part of the base budget. Next slide. And following, go one more slide, is more details on the new initiatives by subject area. Here we go. We did add park rangers and additional positions in police that are going to be annualized this year. Vehicles and equipment for expansion of the police force, expansion of staff for Station 6, which that construction is underway right now, dedicated hazmat team and hazmat vehicles and additional turnout gear for the fire department. Next slide. Next slide. And these are the expenditures that we anticipate in the area of new facilities. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. As I said, the funding for CIP is coming from our reserve. Some of that, as I shared earlier, is demonstrated over several departments. And we are tackling some deferred maintenance of all of our city facilities. And we're adding some staff to CDRA, not with one-time dollars, but recurring dollars to help us with the land disturbance permit process, which we have received quite a bit of feedback that it's taking very long. Next slide. Next slide. And this is the cost associated with the COLA, the absorption of health benefit costs so that our employees don't get a COLA and then pay the funding back out of their pocket for increases in health costs. And we are adding some staff in HR to help us with recruitment. And then we are also reorganizing to create a grants division under the umbrella of the city manager's office and expansion of community relations and service. Next slide. And then under quality of life and public infrastructure improvements, we've heard you that there's a great need for additional traffic calming, sidewalk improvements and pedestrian lighting. We're also going to be embarking on a pretty significant community beautification initiative and litter reduction program to include marketing and adding some street sweepers and operators so that we can increase the frequency of street sweeping on our major corridors, as well as converting some seasonal positions to full-time positions for park maintenance and creating a youth development program for Saturday school taught by certified teachers in our Parks Department. Next slide, please. And T-SPLOST, our 1% transportation special purpose local option sales tax. We anticipate allocating all of that revenue to projects in fiscal 25 in the 5 categories. Next slide, please. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I am subject to your questions.
All right, Mr. Clerk, as you put the cue on the screen, I believe this is your first full budget. This is your second budget. Look at that. You've been here for a record amount of time as our city manager, and the budgets just keep getting better. So first, thank you for this thorough presentation and this budget that addresses so many exigencies we have as a city, particularly around revitalizing our neglected infrastructure through the capital improvement plan, and as well as the $0 deductible plan. Thank you. I see HR out there. The things that you're able to do to make the city better, not only for our citizens, but also our staff. And with that, I turn to Councilwoman Helen Willis.
Yes, I just have one question. Did we remember to fund the Police Athletic Association.
So my understanding is we incorporated the 150 as seed money in years 1 and 2, and then it would be evaluated to determine whether or not in fiscal '26
Okay.
we would need to continue funding it, or if it would have sufficient donations to operate. Of course, any staff assigned to it, we will pay for the staff.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Seeing and hearing none other, I believe we need a motion.
I move to adopt the ordinance for the fiscal year '25 budget.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Shall we try this vote in the queue?
Vote is open. Councilmember Gumbs, I see you're not logged in. Would you like to register a voice vote?
I would,
How would you like to vote?
and that is yes.
Okay. Would you like to vote yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, I said yes. Did you hear me?
Yes,
Got
that's
you.
confirmed.
Yes, confirmed.
That vote, that motion is approved unanimously, 7-0.
All right.
Can I just say one thing that I neglected? I did want to thank you all for your support and thank the budget staff, everybody who's worked on this tirelessly, with all of, everybody who's been participatory in the budget process. It has been a long one and a grueling one, so really want to thank the finance team and everybody who's participated in the budget process. Big thank you.
Awesome. Ladies, and give yourself a round of applause. We have a 2025 budget. All right.
What a privilege, Mr. Mayor.
The chair recognizes Councilman Sebastian for a point of privilege.
Thank you, sir. I could not help to just reflect a little bit as to the very, very early days of us trying to put this city together under Fulton County. Our last full budget was $55 million. And we just approved a budget of $257 million, and with a general fund of $185 million. So again, I think we are on the right track, and I think all who have worked towards not only making this city possible, but those who have worked to bring it thus far, we know the decision that was made was the correct one so that we could chart our own future and pay our own way. So thank you all. Thank you, Madam City Manager, to you and your team. Thank you.
All right, and with that, the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move to
Adjourn.
go into executive session for real estate. Do you have anything, City Manager?
Got litigation.
The city attorney has something for executive session, and I have one small item under property.
I move that we recess into executive session for personnel, real estate, cybersecurity, and litigation.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Just as discussion, Madam Attorney, which of those four is your items?
The litigation.
Okay, and Madam City Manager, what is your item fall under?
Real estate.
Okay, so we have a motion to go into executive session for personnel, cybersecurity, litigation, and real estate. If those are your only items, I would ask if we could amend.
Mayor, I would not like to change my motion because...
I'm sorry, I still have the floor, so I need you to wait for me to finish and then acknowledge the next speaker. If the only two items that are suggested by our attorney and city manager are litigation and real estate, I would like to entertain a motion or an amendment, or however we do that, I forget, we change it all the time, to just do litigation and real estate. All right, seeing and hearing no further motions, we can vote on the motion that's on the floor.
Vote is open.
It wasn't a second, was it?
Yes, it was.
I second it.
Okay.
And we voted online, right, Mr. Clerk?
I closed my computer, so I'm raising my hand.
I registered your vote. Councilmember Bell. Councilmember Gums, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
That motion was approved 7-0.
All right, we're
Recess.
adjourned for executive session.
Recess
We're
at
recessed for
6:21.
executive session. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We have a quorum, so I'm going to first entertain a motion. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn executive session.
I move to adjourn executive session.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. I'll take that. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I do that, Mr. Clerk, were there any items in executive session for which we need to make a public vote?
No, there were no public votes taken in executive session that requires public vote.
All right, I'll entertain this vote by show of hands.
Heard that motion approved 4-0. We are reconvened at 7:33 p.m.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second and third.
It's been properly moved, seconded, and thirded. I'll take this vote by a show of hands.
Heard that motion approved 4-0. We are adjourned at 7:33 p.m. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you back here at the Southwest Arts Center, 915 New Hope Road, 30331, Tuesday at 4 p.m. South Fulton forever.